Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's Twimbit immersion. I am Manoj Menon, co-founder and MD at Twimbit, and I'm super thrilled regarding today's conversation. Today's conversation is about how do you create winning customer experiences in the insurance industry. And joining me today is KV Dipu, who is the senior president, and he heads customer experience at Bajaj Allianz, one of India's leading insurance companies. So Dipu, really thrilled and excited. We spoke last time. I was inspired by what you said, and I thought it'll be great to bring you and have this conversation together with the industry.
Thank you so much, Manoj. I'm equally excited. Love the way, we were able to have a conversation last time. So looking forward to an encore today.
Fabulous. So Dipu, maybe to begin with, can you tell us a bit about the insurance industry structure itself? Because while this is many people in the insurance industry can learn on how to innovate and what is the future of customer experience in insurance industry, but many things that you have done are equally relevant for other industries as well. So if we could start by saying, can you give us a bit of structure? The insurance industry is fairly complex. You have life, non-life, and if you can walk us through a bit of the structure of the industry and how that impacts how we do business.
Sure, Manoj. I think it's always good to have a context-setting question, right up front, and happy to share the structure as it exists, in the geography that I operate in. So insurance is, of course, a regulated entity. I think that's something which people are aware of. So there is a regulator, and firms, work closely with the regulator to ensure that they're compliant. So I think that's one point we clearly kept in mind. The other is the industry, like you rightly pointed out, is largely broken up into life and non-life. Life insurance companies offer life insurance policies, and non-life insurance companies offer all policies other than life. For example, motor insurance, health insurance, property insurance, home insurance, so on and so forth. We also have some companies which are focused only on health insurance. So they are called standalone, health insurance companies. So that becomes, one more subset, within the non-life category. And from an insurance penetration perspective, insurance penetration is typically calculated as the total insurance premium, as in what customers pay to buy insurance, so total premium, so the total revenue of the insurance industry as a percentage of the GDP. And that way, from our context, we have a significant distance to cover, in terms of, global benchmarks. The industry has been operating roughly around the 1% norm, which is insurance premium as a percentage of GDP, whereas global norms have been, are at least 3x. So therefore, there is some distance to cover. And especially in the last couple of years, when the pandemic was in vogue, the regulator and the firms worked collectively to ensure that we digitize the entire life cycle as much as possible, which is where, you've seen a lot of, winning customer experience stories. So this is, an overall context. And I'll, for the benefit of the audience, bring up relevant points in the context when we get into subsequent questions.
And how do you split life versus non-life approximately? You don't need to be perfect. Like in terms of, is it 50-50? Is life, non-life? How is the split globally as a?
Yeah, see, firstly, if you ask, globally in terms of, split, it may be sometimes difficult to share a percentage because the landscape varies from country to country, right? For example, if you look at health insurance, it's offered along with life, in some countries. Yes. And, it's also not called life and non-life, in various countries.
Every country.
For example, non-life is called, property and casualty, P&C, in many firms, because their, health is a part of, life. And the two are, while insurance as a term is common and both are regulated by the common regulator, but they're as different as chalk and cheese. Life insurance, it goes beyond just being an insurance policy, right? Because people also look at it from the perspective of, their entire financial outlook. And of course, it's longer term. If you look at non-life insurance products, they're typically shorter term. You buy a one-year policy, and then you kind of renew it, year on year, depending on the need. So that's how largely, the two are different.
Fabulous. And so where are the biggest innovation opportunities in the industry as you see it?
Yeah. I think that's a very relevant question, Manoj, from today's conversation point of view. See, if you look at the biggest innovation opportunities, it always starts with the customer. That's point number one, right? Typically, we tend to get caught up with the latest buzzword in town, whether it's AI or ML or blockchain, and then people may try to understand, how to deploy these technologies. But you have to start with the customer. The technology comes second. The technology is a means to an end. It's not an end in itself. So therefore, why I spoke so much about the customer is, if you look at the biggest innovation opportunities, typically you pick those points in the customer life cycle where the friction is the highest. And there, if you can come up with, simple solutions, you can really innovate. Let me just illustrate this, with an example. Let's take, the claim process. This is the moment of truth in the insurance industry. Why do you buy an insurance policy? So that you can file a claim, or avail of the services of the insurance company at the time when you need them the most. Earlier, if you crashed your car, you would call up the insurance company. They would then, locate you, look for an inspector or a surveyor, who's nearest to the site of the crash, ask him to, get prepared and, get ready and, reach the site. He would then examine the vehicle, submit his report, and then the whole process would kick in. This could sometimes, take days. So here we said, how do we innovate the entire landscape? How do we bring in innovation, and then make it easier for the customer? So Manoj, what we did is we applied our expertise and we used two tools. One is artificial intelligence and other is a tool called machine vision, by which we did away with the surveyor or the inspector for cases up to a certain limit. So now what customers need to do in the unfortunate event of a car crash is just take photographs of the car. That's step one. And step two, upload them using the mobile app. What happens at the back end is the AI engine, which we have, which has been taught using years of our expertise. It will basically assess the images which the customer has uploaded, determine the extent of damage, and convey even the financial amount to the customer. The customer gives his consent and the money is transferred. And this can happen within 20 minutes up to certain amounts. So what could take days, and was a big friction point for customers, now can take up to 20 minutes for certain amounts. So that's how, if you look at where innovation makes a difference and where you can scale up, the biggest opportunities lie where the points of maximum friction exist from a customer point of view.
Excellent. And so, let's go specifically to Bajaj Allianz. And where have you, let's say, what are the 2 or 3 big differentiators that have made you that leader, that winner today, having captured, I know you have won numerous awards. So what is it that you have done that has helped you, kind of get ahead of competition?
Yeah. Again, a good question, Manoj. And, if I take a look at the rear view mirror, if I look at, all the initiatives that we have launched, what has, helped us, stay ahead of our peers, or essentially, bring in new industry perspectives. First point, I think, is what I already referred to in my, in the previous question, is customer first. We have to always understand that our primary role is to solve a customer problem or introduce, a new product or feature which did not exist. So if you wear the customer lens first, then you bring in solutions, which are effective. Otherwise, you may end up with solutions which look jazzy, but which may end up being white elephants, because you spend a lot of time on them, but because they do not solve a customer's problem, you may not find takers for them. So I think clearly, that's point number one. And I think we figured out what are the biggest points of customer friction and launched, innovative solutions. So clearly that helped us stay ahead. The second aspect, Manoj, is when we deploy digital solutions and when we use, state-of-the-art technology as various points, what we also need to keep in mind is, when do customers come to you? They normally come to you when they are in trouble. They do not come to you, when they're going through a good time. They will either, and that's when, they need empathy or a healing touch. So what we did is, we tried our best to humanize this entire digital process. And I think, we brought in that empathy and a healing touch. Let me again give you one example. On the earlier point, I did not share an example here because I spoke about it in the answer to the previous question. In terms of, let's take health insurance. Now, what happens when customers get hospitalized? It's a time when they're going through stress. As it is, they're unwell and, they basically need to recover. And many of them, are also wondering how to navigate this complex administrative landscape in hospitals. You need to go to multiple departments for various tests. Billing is, a completely different, ball game. They just need to manage that at a time when, they are anyway unwell and stressed. So we gave a good combination of man and machine. So we have a relationship manager who gives them a lot of empathy, and he ensures that the entire processing is seamless and digital. And when we got an NPS done on this initiative, Manoj, we got a NPS score in excess of 90 without a single
Wow.
detractor. So that just shows how effective this combination of man and machine works. The third, Manoj, is I think it's important to be humble, no matter how accomplished you are. And while it looks, like a cliche, but I think that lies at the heart of continuous innovation. Today, you cannot say that, you are a know-it-all, right? Nobody predicted COVID-19. Instead, the approach in your, in the core of your, in the inner core of your entire DNA has to move from being a know-it-all to being a learn-it-all. So you need to have the humility to learn from, the industry folks as well as, people from outside the industry. So I think customer first, humanizing the digital, and having a learn-it-all rather than a know-it-all approach, I think has helped us stay ahead.
So fabulous. Now, if you look at the industry and if you try to form a visionary perspective of the industry to, let's say, 3, 4, 5 years from today, how do you see this changing? Where do you see, will you, it's still about insurance. It is still about, in a way, helping after the incident, right? After you've fallen ill, after the accident. Do you see a dramatic change? Are you going to help me not get into that accident? Yeah, what is the visionary perspective of the industry as you view it?
So Manoj, if you look at, what the industry has accomplished, in the last few years, especially in the last couple of years, and then if you try to do crystal ball gazing, from that perspective, I think the landscape, becomes fairly clear. One is, we are increasingly seeing an expansion in terms of, products, which are getting covered under the insurance ambit. We all have heard of, motor insurance, health insurance, property insurance, the standard lines of insurance. For example, during the pandemic, we launched pet insurance, right? Insurance for pets,
Wow.
Similarly, cyber insurance, right? It's a digital world, right? We are all, wondering how to protect ourselves in the digital world, right? There could be a lot of things which can go wrong. So cyber insurance, is another frontier as well. So that way, the universe of insurance, is likely to expand, because as you get into new arenas and new turfs, you will see, those, products coming into insurance. So I think that's, clearly one thing which you can envision, as you go ahead. The second aspect is to the point that you made, about prevention versus curing. That again is an area, where, for example, we launched an app called Profit. So here, what we are saying is most insurance companies make an attempt to be the best from a claim paying perspective. And like you rightly pointed out, it is after you've fallen ill, right? It's about curing. Now, as an insurance company, why do we need to be with you only during your illness phase? Because when you have a policy with us, you are ill only for a minuscule percentage of the time. How can I be your partner during, the other phase, the majority percentage of the time, which is not during your wellness phase? So when we did Profit, in our app, customers could basically log in their health parameters and, use us not only as an insurance player, who is helping you during your illness phase, but also helping you during your wellness phase. So that way, insurers, getting more into the lives of customers, through the entire journey. That clearly, is again, one aspect, that you can see. And as I told you, these are areas where, we've already taken, steps, in the last few years as well. The third is, from this entire, digital angle that we have seen, you're likely to see, for example, people looking at a multilingual perspective, because a lot of digital assets typically get launched in English. But if you want to amplify your reach and, penetrate into the innermost, towns of your particular geography, can you speak the customer's language? Our bot, for example, can speak in multiple languages. Our website is in multiple languages. We have launched some apps, exclusively, in local languages, for our, customers. So, that's one thing, we have seen. And the other aspect there is, like I mentioned to you, how do you also humanize, your digital offerings? Because it's not just about, just ensuring that, you have the efficacy of bots, but can you also bring in, healing, healing touch and empathy? Therefore, getting, your digital assets to mimic human behavior. I think these are 2-3 trends, we are likely to see going forward.
Excellent. Thank you. Dipu, maybe we'll do some quick rapid fire questions.
Sure.
I apologize if you are hearing a lot of background noise. Are you hearing any background noise? Or?
No, I'm comfortable,
Not really.
Manoj.
Okay. Okay. Fabulous. So let's do some rapid fire, and then I've got a lot of other questions that I want to bring back. So the first question
Sure.
is, what is the one technology that you believe will transform insurance by 2025?
I think IoT, is a technology, which can expand the scope of insurance.
Excellent. The second one is a new insurance that you believe will be introduced that doesn't exist today.
Yeah, so I told you about cyber insurance, right? I think it can take multiple form factors, as you get into a digital way of living, therefore your new forms of, protecting yourself, from digital, threats.
Excellent. And do you think something like, group collective buying of insurance will someday becoming a compelling product? Now, we have seen variants of this done for shopping, etc. Do you see any such thing, any such trend likely to happen?
I think attempts, have been, made in the past, right? Because, insurance being, a product which is, nearly 400, 500, years old, right? You have seen attempts, at many of these models. I'll say, we'll have to wait and watch.
Okay. And how much do you think micro insurance, because now digital, we are all beginning to buy, consume insurance through many other journeys, be it on the websites or travel sites, etc. So how much do you think micro insurance will be part of total revenues by 2025 or 2020 or 20?
Yeah, it may be difficult to put a number, Manoj, because the penetration can vary, by country, depending on the landscape and how the industry is structured. But overall, if you look at miniaturization as a trend, in terms of coming with sachet-sized products or bite-sized products, I think clearly that's something which we have witnessed in the last few years. So it's likely to continue.
Excellent. And any other new types of insurance that you think we will have in the near future?
Yeah, I think if you look at the insurance of the history of insurance, it gives you clues. Initially, it was marine insurance because shipping was the biggest form of transport. Then, when the automobile revolution happened, motor became the biggest form of insurance. And now when we're getting into digital, you may very likely see cyber as the biggest form of insurance going forward.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you very much, Dipu, for that rapid fire. I want to go back to a few things. For example, I'm very inspired by Ping An in China, and how they have gone ahead from being an insurance company to being a technology company. They have built some ecosystems. Is that vision of a complete ecosystem where everything is managed end to end from an app possible to replicate in countries like India?
See, from a conceptual point of view, yeah, if you're talking about, meeting customer needs, right, and, solving customer worries across the entire spectrum, conceptually, it's possible, across, various geographies. As I mentioned earlier as well, what we have to keep in mind, when we look at, replicating other country models is the context is very important. What is the cultural context, right? Because customer needs are different. So if we can ensure that we transport best practices, keeping the context in mind, then it can actually become a win-win. You can get the best of what other countries are doing, transport them to your particular setting, and then do it. So conceptually, doable, as I said, but we'll have to keep the context in mind, not only in this country but any other country that we take it to.
Correct. In our last conversation, we talked about new measures of digital success, and you were quite enthusiastic when we said, we need to start measuring digital success in the form of efficiency. How easy is it to deal with us? Engagement. How frequently is the engagement? How much time or how close are we to the customer? And the third one was ecosystem value. I think in today's conversation, we touched upon efficiency. Clearly you have outlined several things you did. You also talked about ecosystem, where you are now beginning to, with a variety of new products, you're creating to a wider range of it. So how about engagement? Do you foresee customers engaging with you even when they are not when they have not been impacted? Like you talked about profit as one mechanism. Are there other initiatives that you will start saying, oh, now I'm going to start measuring monthly active users, daily active users, and is that a metric? Is that realistic? Should that be considered?
It's a very good question, Manoj. Engagement is, an evergreen topic, because the more you engage with your customers, the more, both of you have, increasing skin in the game. So I'll give you examples of, where we have engaged. I gave you Profit, right? During the pandemic, when customers reached out to us and said that because of the lockdown, they were not able to, let's say, visit doctors, or let's say COVID-19 was getting prioritized because there was huge stress on the ecosystem. We came out with a simple but a very effective concept called Doctor on Chat. So customers could log into our mobile app, have a digital consultation with our empaneled set of doctors via text, voice, or video, and then just go and buy medicines, because medical shops are always exempt, even during the strictest form of lockdowns. So that was a case of, actually meeting customer needs, beyond core insurance. And even otherwise, in terms of roadside assistance and various other features that we have launched in the past, we have, ensured that, we stay engaged with our customers. And, that's an ongoing journey. And you measure it, through multiple metrics. You measure it through hard metrics, you measure it through soft metrics. And I think today measurement systems, when the footprint is digital, actually, become easier, because today you can do it in a far more organized and a far more meticulous manner.
Okay, fabulous. As you have gone through this entire journey of implementing and transforming and making Bajaj Allianz like one of the big leaders in insurance in great customer experience. So what has been what has been some of the big lessons in this transformational journey? As from when you started it to how you have evolved it to where it is today.
Good question, Manoj. Again, makes us introspect. So there are 2-3 angles which come to mind. First, and I might sound like a stuck record on this, customer first. I think you just need to ensure that, you're here to solve a customer problem. It's not about coming out with something which customers don't value, because then it becomes, a non-starter from day one. I think that's clearly, one focus area which has helped. The second is, if I go back even to my Lean Six Sigma expertise, it's very important to ensure that you involve your stakeholders right up front. I think a lot of people, work on something, in secret, let's say in a lab setting, and then maybe just a few days prior to the launch, you just, inform your poor, unsuspecting stakeholders, and then, there are a lot of discussions going on. Some may object to it. There is a compromise, and then finally, what you launch is not, let's say, the full-fledged version, but maybe, diluted version, and then, it doesn't really see the light of day. I think it's important to have, stakeholder interactions right up front, ensure that objections are handled, ensure that everybody is on board, because then by the time you come to the launch, because you've done the heavy lifting up front, the journey becomes, smoother. So if you ask me for 2 clear lessons, I'll pick these 2.
And how is the teams, the teams of today versus teams of tomorrow? When you are running an outfit and an organization like this, how do you see those team composition change? Are more technology people getting embedded? Are you educating existing people more on technology? How is that team transformation happening?
Yeah, I think that's again, a dimension which is increasingly coming to the fore, especially in today's context. We all have heard about how one of the permanent features, even in the post-COVID era, is the work from home concept. Because, we keep reading media reports about how, various candidates have rejected job offers because, they didn't have the work from home option. So I think that is clearly the hybrid model, of people working from home, people working from office. Clear, that's one. The other aspect is, tapping talent pools. Now, when people work from home, or let's say work from anywhere, you might have folks available in the smaller cities who could not migrate to the big cities, or people who may not be available, for a normal full-time office role. Maybe they're available for a few hours in a day. So that way, you can get, new talent pools. Thirdly, in terms of training, the question that you asked, clearly, I think, that's a no-brainer. Firms are investing in reskilling and also, reinforcing the basics, because there is a born-again focus on human aspects like empathy. So clearly, you're training people on that. And of course, reskilling people, because that's an ongoing journey. You need to ensure that you're up to date with, with the latest trends in the world, and, you evolve, with the change in the surroundings, clearly. In terms of, technologies, I think, if you look at the market, there are market trends which sometimes become a buyer's market and sometimes, become a seller's market. So in that context, you focus on 2 areas. One, of course, depending on the need, you do introduce, people with relevant expertise in that particular area into your team. That's clearly one solution. The other is also to reskill your existing teams. So it's a combination of hiring, and reskilling. And like I mentioned, the earlier dimension. So I think today we live in very interesting times, and I think the jury is still out on, finally what equilibrium, will hit.
Excellent. A last question, when you think about customer experience and when, across industries, not necessarily India is not known for great customer experience. Having said that, Indian hospitality industry is known around the world for the incredible customer experience that they give. Yeah? People talk about it as being the best in class that you can ever experience. What is it that Indian customer experience in insurance or any other industries you believe can offer and be benchmarks for rest of the world? Are there areas we can contribute?
I think you called out a cultural dimension which has an impact on customer experience. When you look at Indian hospitality or Indian customer experience. I think one thing which we need to take cognizance of is that in India the customer sets can be very heterogeneous. So you need to ensure that you're catering to these multiple segments, because people speak different languages, people come from various socioeconomic backgrounds. So if you can handle this, right, because India is a subcontinent, right? So if you can handle consumer experience in India, you clearly can handle consumer experience globally, right? So I think a lot of practices from here can be taken globally. The other is we also need to understand that India is a relatively young country. We have a lot of people who are millennials, and therefore India is digital first in many ways, right? Because many of these people are born digital natives. So if you look at a lot of Indian systems getting exported globally, whether it is UPI or whether it's various Indian inventions, right? I mean, India is the software capital of the world, right? I mean, there are a lot of firms from India, go and, basically give, technology solutions, to clients around the world. I think, the unique Indian setting in terms of managing multiple complex variables. And of course, like you said, the cultural dimension of maybe, Atithi Devo Bhava, right? The guest is our God. So I think, these two things, clearly bring in a lot of practices. And I think whatever solutions we have launched, can definitely be taken up globally, keeping the context in mind.
Correct. Sorry, two more quick follow-up questions. When you think about priorities, as you look at priorities, that you would work on or people in the industry would work on for the next 12 months, what would you say are the top 2 or 3 priorities for leaders like you to transform or to continue the journey in your respective organizations?
Yeah. So Manoj, when I look at conversations that industry folks are having, I think there are 2 priorities I clearly see. You spelled out the next 12 months horizon. One is to ensure that you do not fritter away the gains of the COVID era, because you were able to get digitization going in various areas, and what earlier took decades happened in weeks. So how do you ensure that those gains are sustained? I think that's one. The other is in terms of amplifying your reach, right? How do you ensure that you continue to have these solutions offered at scale? So I think these are 2 clear focus areas for the next 12 months, and this comes out when I speak to a lot of my peers in the industry and even outside the industry.
And what does it take, Dipu, to become a leader like you? There are lots of young people who are aspiring to become leaders and drive and occupy positions of importance just like you are, and transforming companies. So what is the skill sets? What are the things that you would recommend, a few things that they should look at as they're looking at building careers and excelling in their areas?
So I'll start by saying it's a humbling question, and taking a cue from the word humbling, I think it's important to be humble right up front. We cannot assume that the end of formal education means we have learned everything that there is, and we just come out and offer our expertise to the world. You learn every day. So the first thing is to shift your mindset from being a know-it-all to being a learn-it-all. The point that I made earlier, I think that always keeps you fresh. The second is my mantra, which I've stated several times during this entire conversation: customer first. Because a firm exists because of its customers. How do you ensure that you satisfy your customer needs? I think clearly if that mindset is there, no matter what stage of the career you are in, you're bringing in solutions for customers, and I think that clearly is required. The third is to understand, and this sometimes happens with youngsters, that nobody does it alone. A firm does not rely on just one star in the firmament. There are multiple stars, so it's important to work as a team. Handling objections, should be issue based. They're not personality based. There could be a genuine pushback from someone, but you tackle that issue, right? You don't become angry with that person. So I think if you can, keep that in mind, work as a team, look at issues as issues in isolation and then solve them. They'll help. The other is the upfront stakeholder involvement that I spoke to you about,
Yes.
which is also a spin-off from the earlier point of, you don't do it alone. It's important to carry everybody with you in the sense that, involve them upfront, figure out what are the, points they have. There could be some, genuine, feedback coming your way. How do you incorporate them? So that the final product which is launched is a good combination of what customers want, as well as, it incorporates the collective wisdom of all your collective stakeholders, whether it's the sales team, the marketing team, the IT team, or various other functions. I think if you can focus on these 3-4 basics, and then keep learning from, every success and every failure that you have, then, you just, convert that into a process, which hopefully helps you over a period of time.
I like the third point you said, youngsters don't realize and the importance of team and how we can, is there any secret recipe or mantra to accelerate that process other than aging?
Well, good one. Aging, of course, gives you wisdom. The other way to accelerate that is to actually put, put the people when they are young, into not individual contributor roles, but let's say, team roles, where they need to work, with a team. And when you're thrust into the, into the deep sea, then automatically, you learn how to swim to the shore. So I guess, that's how, if youngsters can be put into such roles, they will learn on the job.
Fabulous, Dipu. That was such a great, enjoyable learning, as well as, so much of sharing. I appreciate it very much. And thank you, Dipu, for your time. I wish you continued success. Hope to catch up again and pick up the conversation where we left off and see, how you continue to drive innovation in the industry.
Thank you so much, Manoj. Lovely interacting with you. Great questions. And, hopefully the audience, enjoyed our interaction. And, wish you all, luck, as we go ahead.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.